So today I'm actually going to talk about Commissioner Don Garber State of the League address that he usually do every single year right as MLS Cup is about to begin. Now, normally I don't listen to his State of the League because I probably know what he's going to talk about. He's just going to talk about the summary of the league and how the league has continued to grow and so forth and so what. But not only I decided to give it a chance in terms of actually listening to it, but also there's definitely some interesting thing that's going to be happening in MLS in the future. And one interesting thing that I definitely want his opinions about is the new Apple TV deal that is going to be starting next season, and also the situation with the stadium with certain teams, and also the expansion that we are going to get, and not to mention the World Cup that is coming in. And there was definitely some interesting thing that he mentioned about it. In fact, I actually didn't put like a lot of the interesting thing on here. I only put some of the key things that I was looking forward to kind of hearing. So that's why I basically did this video and kind of did some notes in terms of what he kind of mentioned. Now, obviously, as it is the case with this being a State of the League address, of course, Don Gabbard is going to start addressing the league about the highlights of the season. Obviously, he mentioned the total attendance this season. It's a record amount, and it's not a big surprise. We got record attendance when you have another team in the league, and the fact that even though the average attendance has dropped from previous season because you have an extra team this year, and not to mention the fact that you also technically have two extra teams because last season, in terms of the attendance wise, it was definitely a little bit skewed because of the fact that for part of the year we were still in limited capacity. Therefore, that's why you have, of course, the total attendance record from this year. But also he mentioned about the new stadium debut. I mean, we talk about every single season like that. That's kind of something that is stable in terms of what Commissioner Gabbard is going to mention. He's going to mention those beautiful soccer specific stadium, and in this season we saw it with Geodis Park being built and how beautiful it is, and also a landmark soccer specific stadium being the largest in the country, and then of course the record in TV's rating, which that was kind of interesting to for him to say that, because I always thought that the TV rating this season hasn't been that good. I mean, the numbers has said itself for most of the national TV rating. It hasn't been that great, and that's been some of the weakness that I think MLS might have to address in the future. And also that's why we of course have to talk about the Apple TV situation. But before I talk about the Apple TV situation that he mentioned, he did also provide a brief summary in terms of the MLS Next Pro. Now, I'm kind of thinking about doing a video talk about MLS Next Pro and whether or not if it's successful or not. I mean, there's definitely different opinions. Some people said it's successful, some people said it's not, and he definitely provides some brief summary of how excited he is in terms of giving a lot of these players a chance to be basically level not only within the second team, but get a chance to promote it into the first team. And we've seen that happen a couple of times this season, where there's a notable MLS Next Pro player that really crushed it in the league and was promoted by the team that their affiliate, and that's kind of something that Don Gabber is looking to maybe hope that's going to be something could be in the future. And not to mention that's the league that it is used to trying to create some more good young homegrown talent, as what the league is basically emphasized, besides the fact that they also want to emphasize in terms of the amount of transfer that is going on. And he did kind of mention about the transfer. I think he mentioned like something like top 5 transfer investment, which that was kind of a surprise because, I mean, I know MLS has gone a long way in terms of some of the transfers, some of the investment that is going on, and some of the deals that's been going through. I mean, this season there's was some crazy deals that has happened this year that 10 years before we never thought that of course would be the case. But to say it's like a top 5, I'm not sure if that is exactly true. Now, as I mentioned, the Apple TV situation, I was actually thinking about doing a video a couple of days ago when there was an article that was released by The Athletic talk about the basic Apple TV kind of information that we kind of know that is going to be announced. And probably maybe we'll still do a video about that in the near future as we get more detail. But one thing that I did found in terms of that article is that It talks about how they're going to kind of not only have no blackouts, obviously we know that in beforehand, but there's going to be team related content that is going to be broadcast in. So what that means is that they might have like based on the team that you have, they have like team related content, something that I think each team does for their YouTube channel, because I know each team has their own YouTube page and they kind of try to do that, but now it seems like they're trying to do it in a larger scale, and I like that to be the case because, you know, as a supporter of a team, you definitely want to see some of the behind the scene that is going on with each of these teams, and alongside the players, the coaching staff, and the front office. The consistent match time. This was one of the things that I've read in the Athletic article that Don Garber mentioned, how the match time is going to be much more consistent, and that's been one of the biggest criticism of MLS, where the match times have been so inconsistent. I mean, you know, when you look at this year, it's just almost impossible to kind of gauge what time the game, of course, start, and especially national TV game. There's some that starts early in the morning, some starts in the evening, and so on and so forth, and it's just not consistent whatsoever. Well, they're trying to change that with this consistent match time. Now, I'm not sure is it going to be the same case with national TV, and I'll mention a little bit later about the Apple TV situation when they talk about when they did the Q&A of you know what's going to happen with ESPN, Fox, and also Univision in terms of this deal, because from what I heard, it seems like they're still part of that deal, and that, you know, there are going to still be MLS games that's going to be broadcast on those network, but, you know, they of course will have mostly Apple TV basically do it, and Apple TV, I think you can still watch it on Apple TV, and you don't have to, of course, have Fox or even ESPN or even Univision for them for it to watch those games. But, you know, in terms of the consistent match time, you know, you have a specific schedule where you have like the pre-match content, then you have, of course, the matches where every single match is going to start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and then you kind of have like different halftime show depending on the gaps, and then of course the last game of the match day is going to finish no later than 1:30 p.m. Eastern, or actually not 1:30 p.m. Eastern. It's 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and 9:30 p.m. Pacific, and then you of course have the post-game production. Which, speaking of which, Don Garber did mention there will be a in-game and post-game kind of production. Now, he didn't mention how it's going to look like, but again, he mentioned that he promised that it's going to be a quality kind of a production in terms of that. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to look like, because that's one of the things that we MLS fans want to see, where, you know, I've seen what Paramount does with their Champions League kind of coverage. I love what they do it there, and I wish they do the same thing with MLS. And that's kind of also the thing that's been missing for the past couple of years. Like, when you look at some of the production level, I mean, at least I will say Fox Sports is trying their best in terms of it, but let's just say that it's not really that good, and especially ESPN. Man, ESPN absolutely dropped the ball in terms of production. They don't really even provide a pre-game show. They don't do anything in terms of that. So it's definitely refreshing that of course would be the case, but let's see whether or not if the quality is going to be good. I mean, I'm going to set a very low expectation in terms of how the production is going to be, but, you know, let's just hope it's going to be good, and that, again, that's something that a lot of fans been wanted MLS to do, which is they have a good pre-game show, they have a good halftime show, and they of course also have a decent post-game show after the game is over. Now, what has come in 2023 as some of the things that Don Garber mentioned? Obviously, St. Louis SC debuting in the league, and they already have 60,000 season ticket holder deposit, which, yeah, that is a huge list of waiting lists that they, of course, would have. Now, you know, keep in mind this is just deposit. When it comes time to where all these fans are, of course, are going to be buying those season tickets, and then of course ending up in the wait list. We'll see how it's going to do, but there's definitely a lot of buzz in terms of St. Louis, and he also mentioned about the new stadium, and it's interesting he didn't kind of mention about the whole stadium problem that they had that I mentioned in the news of the week before, but he did mention that is definitely a beautiful full stadium, and that, again, I can't wait to see that, and maybe even think about attending a game there, because from what I see, some of the rendering, it looks like a very beautiful stadium. And again, this is also not a big surprise that St. Louis is getting a lot of buzz, because we're getting this every single time with new expansion team coming into the league, where they get a lot of buzz and that a lot of people get hype in terms of joining the team. And it's always interesting to see how long that hype level is going to last. But certainly for St. Louis, I think this is even more than usual, where, as I said, with the hype level that's going on, it feels like 60,000 is more than just hype. This is just a lot of the fans been waiting for this moment to happen, and now that it's finally happened, and that yeah, I guarantee you that stadium, it's going to be sold out every single week. And the excitement level, I'll be interested to see if they do go through tough time, whether it's going to kind of continue. I mean, I'm assuming it is, because anytime when you come into the league in your expansion season, I'm pretty sure a lot of these fans that are fans of their expansion team have known the process before. It's not going to be always great immediately when you came into the league. In fact, it's very rare that of course does happen. So I think the hype is going to go throughout the season, no matter what St. Louis is going to do. And of course, from what I've heard about St. Louis, it seems like they're basically doing a better job in terms of what we see with Charlotte in their expansion season. It seems like they're more prepared and definitely heading into the right direction, but we'll see if that, of course, continue as we get into the off season, because this is when I think we're going to hear a lot of players that's going to start signing with St. Louis, and we're starting to get a general idea of how St. Louis is going to look like. Now, he also mentioned about the 30th expansion club, and that he gave a timeline that it will be named in the first half of 2023, and that's also been a big question about, now that we're at 29 teams, and that knowing the fact that 30th club is going to mention soon, when is it going to be? Well, again, he said it's going to be the first half of 2023, and it's still going to be interesting to see exactly who is going to be that 30th team. I mean, for a while, we thought that it was going to be Vegas, but with the situation how recently it seems like San Diego not only has generated interest of potentially coming to MLS, but it's now closer than ever before, where they are actually in talk with the league of potentially getting this team to MLS, and maybe even leapfrog Las Vegas in terms of that spot. And then, of course, he mentioned a little bit about the League Cup tournament. I won't mention too much about it, because you have heard me talk about how the League Cup tournament is, and what he mentioned is kind of the same thing that I did in terms of talking about how the League Cup is gonna work out, and how the format is gonna be when I did a video about it. So if you want to learn more about it, you can of course go ahead and I did a video of that a couple of weeks ago. Now we get to the Q&A notes, and this is the session where some of these journalists, whether in person or on Zoom, is going to kind of ask question to Don Garber in terms of the situation going on with the league, and some of the news that has been in the news cycle that maybe Commissioner Garber didn't mention when he basically provided the State of the League address. And one of the first questions that he was asked is the Apple TV production. And one of the things that we have heard about the Apple TV situation is that maybe the league is actually falling behind in terms of it, because with the way that there hasn't really been a lot of news of how it's going to work, a lot of people and a lot of reports are saying that maybe the league are a little bit behind schedule in terms of it. But Don Garber basically dismissed those claims and basically said, nope, we're not behind schedule. We're still on point of the schedule, and that it feels like maybe we're now getting to a part where, when they do announce how Apple TV is going to work, they're going to announce it in a whole chunk of ways. And I mean, I guess that's a good opportunity for me to at least do a video talking about how the Apple TV production is going to work in MLS. But again, the fact that there hasn't been a lot of news, I can understand why some people maybe are a little concerned. The fact that, well, what's going on? Like, why are we not hearing any news? Are the league even taking this serious about the fact that, with this 10-year deal with Apple TV, this is a historic deal in every aspect that, no other sports league here in the U.S. have done this like that. And the fact that there hasn't really been a lot of news, maybe that's why maybe it kind of give a couple of people a little bit concerned that maybe they're not behind it or not ahead of schedule. But again, Don Garber basically said that they're not behind schedule. They're well and truly in schedule in terms of the Apple TV production. Now, he was also asked about the NYCFC Stadium situation, and he also answered in a very defensive way. Now, I noticed in terms of most of the question that he answered during the Q&A was very defensive, and I don't blame him for doing that because, as a commissioner, you got to take a defensive approach. The media is going to ask you some tough question, and that's kind of also the case for pretty much every media kind of question where you see a lot of coaches or even players are getting questioned by the media. They take a very defensive approach. They don't want to just kind of be very, very transparent in terms of their answer. But obviously, Don Garber, you can clearly see he went very defensive when he was talking about the NYCFC Stadium situation. It's getting to some point where he actually doesn't even. I can tell he doesn't even want to talk about it. I mean, he immediately kind of defected by talking about how, well, at least we got the situation down in Miami or even in other cities that their stadium situation is. But in terms of the New York situation, I don't want to kind of talk a lot about that. I'll just say that it's unfortunate that of course isn't they haven't really kind of get the situation done. And lastly, he didn't really give too much update about the stadium situation that NYCFC has. And again, I'm not surprised that was kind of the answer because I knew Don Garber wasn't going to be truthful and going to be super transparent, or even just kind of admit the fact that they kind of screwed it up when NYCFC decided to came into the league. And how I know that he also mentioned the fact that they had a stadium proposal on finalized, and that it just kind of never went through when NYCFC came into the league in 2015. But obviously, as I said, Don Garber, he's not going to fully admit the fact that we maybe kind of screwed up when we decided to put NYCFC into the league, and that we didn't actually have a complete stadiums situation finalized. And now we have the problem with the fact that the team is playing in 6 different venues last season and are still stuck in a baseball stadium. Now, speaking of stadium situation, he also talked about the Charlotte situation. Now, this is also where I feel like Don Garber kind of contradicted himself a little bit. So, how Don Garber, before Don Garber mentioned the fact that, all these new teams need to have soccer-specific stadium. Well, the way that he answered this question kind of contradicts his previous statement. The fact that, well, yes, it would be nice that a lot of these expansion teams are going to have soccer-specific stadium, but as long as if they can, of course, at least fill up those non-soccer specific stadium and that it can draw a big crowd, then he has no problem in terms of that. And of course, he mentioned of the situation with Atlanta, of how they're playing in a multi-purpose stadium and alongside with Seattle, and how they've been successful. And in some case, when you look at the numbers that Charlotte, of course, put up in attendance wise, it's one of the highest in the league. But we'll see whether or not, as we head into next season and even in the future, whether or not is that a lot to do with the fact that because there's a lot of hype surrounding Charlotte because of them being in their existing season. And also there was question about him talk about the soccer specific stadium in Charlotte. Originally he didn't actually want to answer it, but in the end he kind of mentioned there was really no need for Charlotte to, of course, have a soccer specific stadium if they can get like 30,000 in their multi-purpose stadium, which again, that just kind of contradict what he said before about the whole situation of, every team should have soccer specific stadium, and we're moving into an era where we don't want have team to have to still go through a very MLS 1.0 kind of approach, which is playing in NFL stadium. Now, the other thing that he was asked is the expansion that's going on in San Diego, and that, we have heard a lot of news about San Diego potentially getting a new team, and that he mentioned he have give praise about a possible San Diego expansion. Now, he also kind of mentioned a little bit about the Vegas situation, and that, again, a lot of reports saying that it feels like maybe the situation with Vegas and the talks between the league and the expansion group has kind of broken down. But Don Garber basically kind of neglect all that kind of rumors and saying that they're still in discussion with Las Vegas, and that, again, it's going to be interesting when they do announce this 30th team. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be San Diego? Is it going to be Las Vegas? And just kind of talk about the San Diego situation and why I think maybe they started to kind of jump the line again and being being a high possibility of potentially coming into MLS. Well, there was always kind of talk that San Diego was going to be that team, and that especially with them building that new stadium, Snapdragon Stadium, and a stadium that they look like they're gonna potentially play in if we do have an expansion team that comes in from San Diego. And not to mention, there's been a lot of success with the San Diego Loyals, and especially the women's team that is down there, and how the women's team played a couple of games at the Snapdragon Stadium, and they pretty much almost sold out both of those games that they play. Again, that just kind of goes into the or light up the fuel in terms of the possibility that San Diego is going to be that team that's going to be the next team. Now, one thing that I didn't hear about is the whole Sacramento situation, and I was kind of disappointed that nobody asked that question, because again, for me, I have not forgotten about the Sacramento situation. I mean, I know some people might have forgotten, especially the media has been very quiet with the Sacramento situation, which I feel like maybe that means that ship has already been sailed, and that maybe Sacramento have lost their chance of coming into MLS. But I was hoping someone was going to ask, because I was going to be very interested to see how Don Garber is going to answer that. And I guarantee he's going to be, the way that he's going to answer is going to be similar to what he's trying to answer the NYCFC stadium situation, and that he's going to try his best to not actually be transparent, to be very defensive, and almost at a way where, oh God, somebody's going to ask me this question again. I don't want to answer this question again. And then lastly, Don Garber, of course, did also mention the whole situation with the Portland Timbers. And, we all know about the off-the-field situation with the Timbers and the allegation that's going on with both the NWSL team, the Forens, and also the Timbers. And, of course, a lot of Timbers fans has been demanding the resignation of Mira Paulson, and even demanding Gavin Wilkinson to potentially get fired from the team because of how they handle the situation. Now, obviously, Timbers fans get some part of that wish. I mean, they did eventually. Gavin Wilkinson was removed of his duty because of the scandal that is going on. But there's a lot of people that said that Mira Paulson should be alongside with it, and that again, Don Garber, this is not a big surprise what he decided to do, which is kind of praise Mira Paulson with how he deal with the situation. And he says that there was really no need for the league to potentially force Mira Paulson to sell the team. And again, knowing Don Garber and knowing the fact that he's kind of a guy that is very, very kind of pro in terms of the ownership situation, and that's always been the case in MLS. I mean, unless if you did something really egregious like what we saw with the situation with RSL, so a couple or just last year, you're not going to see a situation where the league is absolutely going to be forced their owner to sell the team if they did something just so egregious. And in this case, I guess maybe they think it's not as egregious enough, because again, there's still this ongoing investigation that is going on, and that I think because of the fact that Don Garber and in general MLS is more toward the owner kind of expense, that's why I'm not a big surprise that he of course said that. Now, that doesn't really come for a lot of Timbers fan. A lot of Timbers fan was hoping that maybe Don Garber will maybe give a little bit of pressure to Mira Paulson, eventually sell the team, but that was always never going to happen. And I truly believe that, I think he is going to stay as the owner of the Timbers. And again, unless if this investigation can conclude and we get all the detail, and if it's egregious enough where maybe Mira Paulson is going to be forced to sell the team, the situation that we had to deal with the ongoing scandal that's going on, I don't think it's enough for the league to potentially force Mira Paulson to sell the team. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of the state of the league recap. Again, there was a lot more that was talk about in the state of the league, but this is kind of just the general things that was talk about. And yeah, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this, and what do you think the future is going to be with this league, and also what do you think about this season in terms of the highlights, because that's kind of what the state of the league kind of does with Commissioner Garber talking about the future and also the highlights of this season. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys hit a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.